If you were a kid growing up during the early 2000s, you may have played a game called Jaws Unleashed. Taking place roughly 30 years after the first film in the Jaws franchise, it follows yet another bloodthirsty shark that is absolutely hell-bent on terrorizing the locals of Amity Island by any means necessary. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. Homie's grudge was so great, he blew up their oil rigs. Like, wanton destruction is one thing, but targeted economic collapse is diabolical. Albeit pretty goofy, Jaws Unleashed could be genuinely fun for what initially appeared to be movie tie-in slop. It's also weird that it at least happened twice. Huh. With all that in mind, Maneater is essentially the spiritual successor to Jaws, as its essence permeates throughout the very core of what makes it tick. So feeling rather nostalgic for said bygone era, I figured it'd be fun to sort of let loose with simple, dumb entertainment for a change. There are 45 trophies to collect, and a lot of things to kill, so let's get to it. We kick things off in the middle of a reality TV show following an enthusiastic shark hunter known as Scaly Pete. Scaly, huh? Interesting. Pete is a rather simple man, as he wants nothing more in life than to make his late daddy proud by finally tracking down a legendary mega shark. Though before we can glean any more info from him, there's a frantic call over the radio indicating that a rogue shark is on the loose. Hit me. It's here where we're brought up to speed on how things work in Maneater, as we are led through a somewhat extensive tutorial going over vital core mechanics. Unsurprisingly, a heavy emphasis was placed on movement with a few additional offensive options scattered throughout, though it did eventually culminate in me earning my first trophy, which is pretty cool. Now, as psychotic as this may sound, it is ridiculously fun losing oneself in the killer shark roleplay. When you indulge in a game like Maneater, you just have to commit. It is the one true path towards enlightenment. Case in point, the next objective was all about eating people, so following my own advice, I decided to fully send it.
A lot of people died.
Pete, however, did not appreciate our hot girl antics and swiftly put an end to the rampage. God forbid a girl have a hobby. Back aboard the Cajun Queen, it's discovered that the rogue shark was pregnant with a lone pup who is every bit as vile as she was, if not more so. After making our triumphant escape, the grind for the platinum truly begins, as within each location are various landmarks, license plates, nutrient caches, grates, and grottos that need to be checked off a list in order to obtain 100% completion. It may seem like a slog at first, but unlike most games that have arbitrary collectibles amounting to nothing, Maneater actively rewards the player via XP for going out of their way to find everything. Very cool. It's also very easy to do so since the sonar ability is incredibly powerful, making online guides wholly unnecessary. You will be able to find everything without regressing into a dirty Google gamer. Once able, I quickly made my way to Fatik Bayou's grotto, essentially a hub area where you can spend your XP to upgrade various body parts and abilities to equip the advanced sonar for yet another trophy. I also made sure to choose the tiger body and focus on upgrading it as soon as possible, as each level increases all fats, proteins, minerals, and mutagens gained from eating by an additional 5%, which obviously means I'll become an unstoppable killing machine that much faster. There are other body types that grant abilities akin to supers, though as one could probably guess, I didn't have those unlocked yet, so I settled for passive progression. My first mission as a pup was to kill a school of catfish. Is that what a group of catfish is called? A school? At Grok. What is a group of catfish called? A group of catfish is called a school or a shoal. Huh, okay, I should probably verify that just to be safe. At Google, what is a group? I will say, for as fun as Maneater can be, mission variety is a definite shortcoming. Basically every task, and I mean like 95% of them, are kill X number of things. This also makes it somewhat difficult to create an engaging video because there's only so many ways you can say I bit an animal's face off.
What?
For example, you'll have an objective to kill 10 turtles. Cool, awesome, you get that done no problem. 2 missions later, you now have to kill 10 turtles. Wait, huh? The turtles are helpless, man. They can't fight back. Not that everything should, it's just odd they padded out a 4-hour experience to 9 in lieu of creating more interesting story beats. Pete is supposed to be our arch nemesis, though we only directly engage with him a couple times. Again, it's odd. With how influential Jaws was on Maneater, it definitely could have borrowed more from it, as with that game you're doing things like taking down buildings on piers, escaping from a zoo, committing various war crimes. You're doing things that break up the monotony a bit more in relation to its story, unlike here. Now that's not terrible for oddists like myself who thrive off repetition, though I could see others being bothered by it. Though I will say, one of Maneater's strengths is how whenever a task is completed or while simply swimming about, one of the prominent characters, whether it be Pete or the show's narrator, will provide some related context to the situation.
Nothing gets a kingfish in the mood quite like watching a 73-year-old hit a double bogey. The fact that they've turned the waters off Baton Tordu into a spawning ground attests to their love of seniors golf.
The whole idea of the game being a show is just charming to me. I don't know, it's fun. Initially, my approach for each area was going to be to collect absolutely everything before moving on, though it quickly became apparent that some collectibles could only be acquired at certain stages within our life cycle. So it then became collect everything you can, and backtrack once able to. I also learned rather quickly that some enemies are pretty tough when they can actually fight back and are like, I don't know, 2 or 10 levels higher than you. My strategy for those encounters was to leave. So after wiping out the smaller wildlife in the name of fat gains, I was able to bulk up enough to become a teen shark. This was a pretty big deal, as the tail whip we had just learned from doing so was genuinely one of the most effective means of killing anything in the game. Even those higher level mobs, as it is essentially a guaranteed stun where you can then go in and absolutely annihilate their health bar, because when enemies are stunned, they take like quadruple damage. It's nuts. The next location was Dead Horse Lake, and just like with Photic Bayou, was full of collectibles and various new aquatic life to obliterate. Although, unlike the Bayou, humans were now in the menu, which in turn led to a new mechanic being introduced, the threat gauge. Kill enough humans and hunters will start to track us down. Kill enough of them and a named hunter will arrive, in this case, Bayou Willie. If it wasn't already obvious from typical numeric patterns, the higher the threat gauge, the more dangerous the hunter fleet becomes. They'll start out on simple jet skis, though will quickly ramp up to more tactical military gear, so it's best to acquire a surplus of powerful upgrades before confronting them in earnest. Weirdly enough, while fighting Willie, he sort of just despawned. I have no idea how that happened, but you'll come to learn very quickly that the PS5 version of Maneater has some interesting quirks to it. Eventually, I would have to reach threat level 10 in order to earn another trophy related to this mechanic, though for now, I settled with one. So after partaking in some more shark-related activities, I ended up completing enough objectives to spawn this location's apex. Each area has one of these boss encounters, and the first we'd have to take down was the Needle-Tooth Nightmare, the Barracuda. It unfortunately did not put up much of a fight thanks to the almighty tail whip, though it did give us an evolution item, as will every subsequent apex fight later on. I also got a trophy for beating it, so there's that. Once the remaining miscellaneous goods were acquired, it was time to move on to Golden Shores, an area rife with super wealthy buttholes who make it a daily habit to remind everyone else that they will never be golf along the coastline rich. Upon entering its grotto, I made sure to equip a couple new abilities to further boost my health values along with the amount of minerals I obtained from the blood of my enemies. As with previous areas, I did whatever I was capable of that didn't require any amount of backtracking, which led me to reaching the next stage of my life cycle. Becoming an adult meant I could easily challenge Golden Shore's apex predator, the Mako, and just like the Barracuda, it was no match for stun exploitation. To be fair, it wasn't just the whip shot causing everything to die in seconds, since my current evolutionary items had also managed to magnify my DPS considerably. Including the DLC, there are 4 sets to collect, those being Bone from Apex creatures, Bioelectric from Hunters, Shadow from Landmarks, and Nuclear from the aforementioned DLC. Bone is great for countering hunters through its high damage resistance and output against boats. Bioelectric tends to excel at stunning predators through massive electrical discharges. Shadow not only greatly increases your overall speed, but also poisons and slows enemies, making it incredibly useful as an overall option. And Nuclear is death. As I didn't have access to the DLC yet, I chose the Shadow set purely for aesthetic purposes. Little did I know, this blasé decision would quite literally make me an unstoppable force of nature. This is because I would start every fight with a stun to get bonus damage, which would then be followed up by spamming bite attacks to build up debilitating status effects, and then once that wore off, I would rapidly alternate between the bite and dodge buttons to essentially make it so they are too sluggish to respond to my overwhelming onslaught. By the time they had recovered from the initial hit, they were already dead. It was time to return to where it all began. Now that I was an adult, I could finally finish up all the missions and collectibles while challenging a 3-legged gator called Rosie. She's even got a little bow on her head, it's so cute. Upon Rosie's defeat, I was rewarded 2 trophies, one for taking down the bayou's apex and another for obtaining 100% completion of said area. You know, maybe we should check in on Pete to see how he's doing. Yo, Pete, you good? Alright. Chat, we are now old, though being an elder comes with some great perks. We're a lot more powerful if you can believe it, and it basically allows us to clean up the majority of every remaining area. Very few collectibles are out of reach, so much so I managed to obtain 50% of all total evolutionary items while knocking out the entirety of Golden Shores, Sapphire Bay, and becoming the mythical Mega Shark. Man, Pete is gonna be pissed. At this point, everything was falling like dominoes. I've managed to fully upgrade all of my equipables to legendary status and dog-walked every single apex that crossed my path. The only one that even remotely put up a fight was the Orca, though it still had no means of countering a steady stream of poison. As expected, Pete was quite angry. If you've been following along, which let's be real, you probably haven't, I'm most likely on a second monitor while you play a game or wash the dishes, I've been doing things in a certain order to create a thematically appropriate finale. You may recall that Pete is after a Mega Shark, so I purposefully became a Mega Shark. He yearns to slay an infamous titan of the deep to avenge his pappy, so I wiped out all the remaining bounty hunters and reached threat level 10. The final apex, in homage to Moby Dick, was also culled so I could be the only remaining one. This fight was going to be everything Pete had dreamed of. Why? Because I honestly felt bad for the dude. It seems like he was right all along to be weary of these freakish sharks that inhabit this area. Like, imagine trying to explain to someone your sibling was mauled by a shark 100 feet inland and then it effortlessly bounced back into the ocean without suffocating. It's basically this. This is a perfect representation of Maneater as a whole.
So you found me. So what?
Pete, I don't know what all this is, but you're scaring us.
What you gotta be scared about? You a shark?
Pete, I don't want to, but I think we need to get the police, maybe the Coast Guard involved?
You think I'm crazy? Nah, I'm the most sane man you ever seen. Look, I didn't get here easy. But when some shark take everything I got, I'll give her the same chance she gave my boy. None! Now get the f off my boat before I kill you too. The f I say! Hope you got a hunger on! We serving shark etouffee tonight!
You know, the absurdity of this situation is not lost on me. Here we have a man who has repurposed a World War II era boat fitted with multiple Tesla coils, iron cages, and torpedoes, all of which are meant to take down one singular shark. Truly one of the games of all time. This boss fight was honestly pretty cool simply because it involved a more strategic approach instead of mindlessly button mashing like a lobotomized caveman. An example being how he is initially surrounded by electrical fields that will rapidly drain your health if struck, so you gotta take them out. How do you do that? By using the whip shot to hit them with either fauna or his own torpedoes. It's even got multiple phases. Just like Dark Souls. Though in the end, Pete was ultimately no match for our prehistoric power, losing himself to one final attempt to take us out. It's a bummer too. I was genuinely cheering for the guy. I salute you, Pete, and I thank you for the platinum. Now it's time to finally tackle the DLC content. Boasting 12 trophies, it's a small addition featuring the narrator's plunge into insanity as we slowly watch him metamorphose into a regular Alex Jones.
Turn the friggin' frogs gay!
As it turns out, he may not be all that crazy, as an evil corporation known by NWO has been doing fun little experiments on the local wildlife, which has resulted in some rather strange mutations to occur. Not only that, said corporation has been secretly developing a bioweapon to unleash on the world so it can spread Super Ebola, while they in turn offer a totally convenient cure that will ensure absolute global submission. They may or may not also be insect people. Jury's still out on that one. Just like the primary content, there's a series of tasks that must be done to fully complete the DLC, with an entirely new activity being the introduction of Plover Island. These time trials are pretty self-explanatory, as the goal is to race through each ring as quickly as possible before time runs out. Unfortunately, the PS5 version of Maneater can make these kind of poop. For whatever reason, this version of the game hitches like a bitches, which is obviously problematic when it requires one to be quick on their feet. There were many times where I'd have to make a particularly tricky jump over an obstacle only to completely biff it because lag would throw off all momentum I had built. You can probably imagine how disheartening it is to fail something multiple times through no fault of your own. Thankfully, the Shadow set comes in clutch once again, as its speed bonus is more than enough to circumvent the lag and will cut down on the number of attempts required to clear these trials. So I wasn't raging per se, just noticeably annoyed. Apexes also make their triumphant return, except this time they're rocking their own evolutionary fit in an attempt to counter your own unique abilities. Haha, bone sperm whale. And would you believe it if I told you that once again, the Orca was the toughest one, as it has been blessed with the Shadow set, making me realize just how fucking annoying I was to play against. Oh my god, I am toxic. Still wasn't enough to take me out though, as my build was far superior to anything they had. I'm the GOAT, what can I say? I suppose something else of note is the addition of these comm towers scattered throughout each map. I'm honestly not exactly sure what they do besides be a target to destroy, but hey, variety. Oh right, the questers should also be mentioned since they're new as well. Basically, our narrator has managed to cultivate his own set of conspiratorial followers online, and in order to get the corresponding trophy we have to
kill him. Let's kill this guy.
Let's beat him to death with hammers.
Unlike other collectibles, these guys can actually be pretty tricky to find, and oddly enough, I like that about them. Mainly because it encourages you to explore each map thoroughly, which, random side note, are all beautifully crafted by the way. The art team went nuts here when it comes to environmental design, very aesthetically pleasing game. But anyways, when you do eventually locate a quester, they're usually around some interesting landmark with its own bit of visual storytelling, like this one next to Pete's boat. Then there were the hunters who had received some crazy upgrades. We've now got fully decked out warships with state-of-the-art weaponry accompanied by multiple Blackhawks. Damn. Plover Island also comes with its own threat gauge, and as before, my job was to completely max it out by taking down every single military vessel they threw my way. Thankfully, there are only 5 ranks to go through instead of 10, though that doesn't mean it's any easier than the base games. In fact, it's significantly more challenging. For other people, not me. I'm built different. Doesn't matter, Terra Nova was 60 levels higher than me. I cooked her ass in less than a minute. Obviously, the main draw of this DLC is less so those mundane side activities and more so the ability to become a nuclear-powered hammerhead shark that can fire atomic breath. This shit is crazy, dude. We need more of it. I just know the devs want to make another one of these games based solely on how the entirety of Maneater functions. Like, the concept of a relentless semi-aquatic creature that can terrorize those both on land and sea is there, I see you. With how many times you make us go on land to kill shit, you're not slick, okay? The vision is clear. Let us play as a crocodilian in the next one with destructible environments, man. Do it, pussies. I know you want to, I've seen Truth Quest's final boss. Speaking of which, the final boss in of itself is an atomic mosasaurus called the Leviathan. Holy fuck, that is awesome. The autism is reaching critical mass. Just like Pete, it had armor that would need to be periodically depleted to actually damage it, along with other elements that prevented my typical Unga Bunga tactics. The only downside is that, like with any other boss I faced, it died incredibly quickly. It even tried to call in the homies for backup because it was getting clapped so badly. After fully completing Maneater, I was curious to see how much more stable the PlayStation 4 version was in comparison to what I was playing. Almost instantly, I had noticed that the lag that was frequently present in the PS5 version was entirely absent here. Sure, it was slightly lower res with a reduced frame rate, though I believe the trade-off was well worth it for stability. Huh? But I already completed the game. Wait, do these stack? Oh my god, they stack. And I did it all over again. Yippee!